us on the Islamic perspective of tackling this spiritual sickness. Radio Islam International, bringing you contemporary and pertinent psychological discussions.
أحب رضاه أحب لقاه يظل يجيء.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Radio Islam International. You are listening to the program You Are Loved on this Wednesday morning. The time is exactly 10 past 9. Online we have Maulana Nazir Ahmad Ragi. Maulana, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We also take this opportunity of greeting all our listeners on Radio Islam, Radio Al Ansar, and the Ummahat platform. Maulana, how are you? Inshallah, it looks like we're going to get some rain today, inshallah.
Inshallah, we're waiting for the rain. Allah masayyiban nafi'ah. Maulana, we were discussing in our last topic about the hijab of a lady. We mentioned about how a number of ladies have called and mentioned their stories of what they were going through. The current world only looks at the outer beauty of people, and it's at this time that hijab becomes a major test. We discussed about influences playing a major role where females want to follow trends, and we find that the finding the middle ground during this time and age is important as long as it meets the criteria of the hijab. The constant need for validation has sent women using filters on social media after removing the hijab. And we also can't stress enough the beauty and validation of sisters without posting on social media. And this is the reason why many of them remove the hijab. This is to feel the freedom and that the heart, that not what is in the heart, it's the physical appearance. Also, they eventually abandon the obligations that they were practicing. We also discuss about codependent men are less likely to abandon Islam after being cheated on. The man will still will hit the gym, seek validation by others, and let others see. We also did that some sisters are even taking up drinking, and a person in hijab will feel safe, confident, and will protect herself from many sin that she would do if she was not in hijab. And we mentioned that observing hijab is a glamorous and fashionable manner is also wrong. Ulama agree that if a person, if the neck and the chest and those are all open, this is not part of hijab. Hijab is also applied to men, and they're also required to dress modestly and required to cover themselves. This is what was discussed until last week. Today we're discussing about women need to understand the importance of observing and encouraging others to follow the correct way of wearing hijab. And wearing it properly shows a strong spiritual strength that narcissists absolutely hate, and choosing to keep it on while dressing well is a sign of high confidence. And Muslim men also play a very important role when they encourage their female relatives to wear the hijab and choose hijabi women to marry.
Yes, Maulana. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We, as you have correctly and very beautifully summed up some of the discussions that we had last week and the previous week, and we follow with that, saying that Alhamdulillah, that our sisters, our mothers, our women must understand the importance of observing and encouraging others to follow the correct way of wearing hijab. And we highlighted some of the incorrect ways of wearing the hijab last week. And wearing the hijab properly shows and exposes a strong spiritual strength which narcissists absolutely hate, and whilst women should ensure that whilst wearing the hijab, they are dressed well. This is a sign of high confidence. When successful, handsome, and wealthy Muslim men, many of whom or some of them rather, though perhaps very few in number, whom are narcissists, choose to marry non-hijabi women whose beauty is more physically appealing. They affect the women who are struggling to please Allah Ta'ala. And this is another very, very important aspect to keep in mind in the broader discussions that we are having. Many women argue that most men don't understand how difficult it is to be a public ambassador for Islam by wearing the hijab. Wearing the hijab, you are actually a public ambassador of Islam. And many women talk about this, that most men don't understand, don't appreciate how difficult it is to be this public ambassador of Islam by wearing the hijab, and also sometimes become very disappointed when they aren't the priority when it comes to their marriage partner choices. Women who wear the hijab properly are often perceived as being very strict, are often perceived as being conservative, are often perceived as being judgmental. And the perception is that they need very religious men. Hence why so many, unfortunately, or some of them, of our women, our sisters, try to sexualize or glamorize the hijab in order to not give the impression that they are extremely strict, they are conservative, they are judgmental. However, what's very, very important, and this is addressing our brothers, it's a Muslim man's religious duty to choose women who cover properly, as not only will it encourage other women to cover if they see that good, handsome, successful, righteous men are choosing to be with women who wear hijab, but it will also be seen as a support for our sisters in Islam. As more and more people, unfortunately in the era that we are living in, more and more people become weak in their faith, move away from an Islamic lifestyle, we see that many Muslim men are becoming extremely careless about the hijab and are indifferent, or rather prefer women who don't cover, so that they can, say in the inverted commas, fit in the modern secular Western society and enjoy this life without the hijab being a hindrance or a problem. Most men don't really appreciate and don't understand the rewards that Allah Ta'ala has saved for them when they marry women who love Allah Ta'ala more than they love this world. But due to them not feeling proud of being Islam, because of society not giving them the validation or the appreciation of wearing the hijab, men don't value women who have strong Islamic principles. They may understand and like the idea of women wearing hijab and may also respect those who wear it, but you get instances where they would not choose hijabi women as wives. And many of them who are adorning the hijab, like how we had some of the comments that came in last week, where the men actually asked them to remove the hijab in order for the men to be, validated in their societies. Unfortunately, this lack of iman, this lack of faith and masculinity does not just apply to narcissists. So it's not only a narcissist that will do that. There are other men who are excellent in their character, who display good Muslim morals, but when it comes to their wives, they would prefer their wives not wearing their hijab when going to certain functions, etc. There are many low-level empaths who prefer that their wives, current wives and future wives, don't wear the hijab, or accept that they don't want to wear it at all. In Islam, it is the real men who support the hijab and encourage their women to wear it, because they are actually protecting our sisters. They are protecting their sisters, their wives, their daughters from harm, and most importantly, the lustful male gazers. Some Muslims will argue that it's better to be a good person who avoids major sins than be a hypocrite who wears the hijab, which is true. But this excuse that rather be a good Muslim than instead of wearing the hijab, this excuse reflects an indication that they don't wish to work on themselves. They don't want to work on themselves to better themselves, despite the fact that not all women who wear hijab are good. Not all women who wear the hijab are good, practicing moral or pious people. Men should still seek to marry those who do wear the hijab, those who do what Allah Ta'ala asks them to do, and have a good character, so that women who wear it aren't encouraged to remove it. Now, we're taking this discussion from the comments that came in last week, and I had many that called privately and also sent messages that they find this difficulty with some men, although they are in hijab, but when they want to go to other areas of social activities, actually encourage their wife not to wear the hijab. As Muslim men can only marry, Muslim women can only marry Muslim men. It's important that men take the hijab seriously and not push aside those who wear it, as they have no other marriage partner options. And this can and is causing a social crisis, as we are seeing in our generation. These women feel let down and ask themselves, if Muslim men don't want us, meaning hijabi women, then who will? So they either stay single, suffer or lose their faith and strength to continue with the good they are doing, sometimes even wear it incorrectly, or completely remove it to have a better chance as being chosen as wives. Now, these are some of the very important things that we need to keep in mind. Muslim narcissists who come across as being very religious and masculine will also seek women who wear hijab, but with different intentions to control them. The difference between the two lies in their attitudes towards women. Empaths are kind, compassionate, whilst narcissists are suffocating, harsh, critical, and forceful. And this distinction has to be maintained. And if a person realizes, again I'm saying it, that we are having these discussions so that we are aware. And if I have some of these traits of being harsh, of being suffocating, of continuously being critical, of being forceful in the approaches that I have, I need to remedy myself. And that's one of the primary reasons why we are having these discussions, because we are observing many of these social ills and disorders in our communities and in our societies. May Allah Ta'ala guide us and make us appreciate the right approach in the concepts of Islam, the teachings of Islam, and most importantly, the ideology and the concept of hijab, that wear it, encourage it, wear it in the correct way, in accordance to the guidelines of Islam, to preserve Islam, and so that our sisters may become good ambassadors of Islam.
Jimara, there is a question that has just come about. Assalamu alaikum. Please, can Marana unequivocally state whether the face covering is incumbent or not? The hijab, niqab, parda, abaya terms have become very ambiguous for most Muslim women.
Okay, so this question, let me talk about this question. I think most importantly, we need to keep in mind that the covering of the face, if there is fear of fitna, then it becomes necessary, obligatory to cover the face. However, if there is no fear of fitna, and you are dressed modestly, well covered, with an abaya, loose fitting, not exposing your contours of the body in a way that you are wearing loose fitting outfits, then there's no, again, the emphasis, there's no fear of fitna, then you may keep your face uncovered. I recall once, whilst we were studying, my Ustad, who is currently now in South Africa, Mufti Rida al-Haq, may Allah give him long life, he once mentioned to us in the class that, if you look at the fiqh of Abu Hanifa rahimahumullah, in some masail, they are long living. What I mean by long living is that it becomes easy to fulfill the fiqh of Abu Hanifa in every era. And he gave an example that, like how according to Abu Hanifa, when there is no fear of fitna, then if you keep your face uncovered, you will not be regarded as someone who is a fasiqah, someone who is disobeying the laws of Allah. And then he went on to say, look at the wisdom, that if Abu Hanifa, or if there was no leeway in this matter of keeping the face uncovered when there is no fear of fitna, imagine how many women, Muslim women, would be contravening the Sharia. The fact that Islam does allow the uncovering of the face when there is no fear of fitna, that in itself is a great blessing for many women who are able to dress modestly when keeping the face uncovered. When there is no fear of fitna, you will not be regarded as a fasiq. I hope I've answered the question, Mona. And an example could be of your ihram. In ihram, women are supposed to keep the face uncovered. And that is an example that here, when the laws of Sharia are such that it prevents any inclination towards evil, in that stage as well, Islam says that women may keep their face uncovered whilst observing the ihram. So this is another example that, provided there is no fitna, provided you are dressed modestly, provided you do not unnecessarily go out into the markets, etc., when there is a necessity, and if you keep your face uncovered in that condition that there is no fear of fitna, inshallah, you will not be regarded as someone disobeying the laws of Allah.
While we have some Muslims who don't support the wearing of hijab, they argue that the Quran verse about the hijab was only meant for the wives and daughters of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it was addressed to them.
Yes, this is also an argument that people bring forward. However, whilst the ayah is that, however, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to take his wives as inspiring role models, because they were all promised the highest rank of Jannatul Firdaus. So what they did and how they practiced their faith is in the benefit of all believing women. Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha, the Prophet's youngest daughter, who was also his most favorite, was a woman who perfected her iman in every way. As the only child of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who outlived her siblings, Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha spent most of her lifetime with her father, which contributed greatly to the development of her being the extraordinary woman that she was. Her love for Allah, her piety, her character earned her the status of being among the best of 4 women to have ever lived. The others were Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, mother of Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun. Pharaoh oppressed and enslaved the people of Bani Israel during the lifetime of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. Therefore, striving to develop the wonderful traits of Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha and practicing our faith in the way she did is as good as following the footsteps of her father, as she's known to be the person who closely resembled her in character. Why should, there's a question here, Maulana, why should women be able to breathe freely like men and it's difficult to eat? Why should we be bad Muslims for not covering the face? Islam is too hard for women. I think I've answered that question in the question that you brought, that in the case where you are not forced, so the law of Islam is very simple, and this concession that Imam Abu Hanifa has mentioned is a great concession, a concession of great wisdom, and it covers the laws of Sharia in a way that you will not be regarded as immoral, immodest, if you don't keep your face covered, provided there is no fitna. So I think we've answered that. So Aisha, coming back, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha has said, I have not seen anyone closer in conduct in the way and manners to that of the Messenger of Allah in standing and sitting than Fatima, his daughter. However, I strongly advise hijabi women to not consider Muslim men who have issues with the hijab. Coming back to our topic, we strongly advise hijabi women not to consider Muslim men who have issues with the hijab or are indifferent to it, and to unfollow the social media accounts of narcissistic Muslim influencers and celebrities who have chosen to remove the hijab, or many who have chosen to sexualize the hijab, because that is actually the antithesis of the objective of hijab. The purpose of the hijab is not to expose, not to glamorize, not to sexualize it. However, these are important things to keep in mind, so that they don't affect their faith or demotivate them. These people remove the hijab for their own personal reasons. Therefore, it's a shame when people are inspired to follow the ways of social media influencers who remove the hijab. It's a shame when people are inspired to follow their ways whilst not knowing that they are doing so as a result of the influencers' own social, own personal circumstances, own personal choices, or own personal mental health conditions. If Muslim women are struggling with their faith and wearing their hijab, it's not a good idea to follow the accounts of those who clearly have issues with the hijab. By staying away from those who regularly justify their reasons for not complying with Allah's request, you'll be protecting your own faith, which is rewarded by Allah Ta'ala. At the end of the day, regardless of how Muslim women wear the hijab or not wear it, the aim of this discussion that we are having is to understand why people behave in a certain way, so that we can become more aware, compassionate, and less judgmental towards each other. And I repeat what I'm saying. There's a question here. Maulana, can a man hit his wife for not wearing niqab using the ayah of the Quran, and if he feels you creating fitna for not covering the face and a nude woman? So let's understand first. The best example is that of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding hitting. And hitting a wife in a way that causes this type of abuse is not accepted in Islam. And we had a very lengthy discussion regarding raising the hand, physical abuse, and this is totally not acceptable. To use that as an example would not be correct for anyone to use that ayah of the Quran for the purposes of forcing a woman to wear the hijab. It would not be acceptable. Again, the purpose, the aim of our discussion is to understand why people behave in a certain way so that we can become more aware and more compassionate, less judgmental towards each other, as every action and every decision has a root cause that we sometimes can't understand to relate to. Being aware helps us to make better decisions about how we can improve, where we are going wrong, who to avoid, and who to have as role models. When can a man use this verse of the Quran? Again, I'm not going to go back again into that discussion. Maulana, if you can, put out the podcast. Just find it. We had a lengthy discussion about this, using this ayah for raising your hand in physical way of hitting. If you can find that podcast and just put it on, if you can just send it to me. And then even, I see this question is coming from the Ummahat platform. If they go back, they will find a lengthy discussion regarding, a lengthy detailed discussion regarding the ayah of hitting one's wife. So you can go back to it, and Maulana, if you can, find it and send it, repost it again on the Radio Islam website, and those that are wanting to know more about it could refer to it, inshallah. I hope that would be okay, inshallah, Maulana.
Gee, that will be perfect. Well, another question has come in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In due respect, if Marana looks around us today, it's fitna all around. Brothers are having affairs with their brothers. Likewise, sisters with their sisters' husbands. Many such cases. They don't even know whose child it is. Marana, even when a blind Sahabi came to our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he ordered his wives to cover themselves.
Yes, therefore, I think we made it very clear that when there is fear of fitna, then it becomes necessary to observe covering the face. And when there is the fear of fitna, unnecessarily to come in the presence of men should not be the case. So I think our discussion has been extremely clear, and we made it without any a conditional concession. And when there is that fear, and like how the sister or whoever sent the message, that there is these things that we are observing in our communities. So when there is that, stay away, don't intermingle. It's clear. But there are occasions where you may perhaps be required to be in certain places, and you are not someone who covers the face. If there is no fitna, no fear, then it's fine. However, that is a concession. Primarily, you should be covering the face. You should be observing full hijab. And the emphasis is that the concession, when there is fear of fitna or no fear of fitna, there is a concession. So let's not, again, I'm going to say this, Maulana, with all due respect. We are living in an era where people are in the habit of misrepresenting, misconstruing, deliberately mentioning things that we did not intend to say. So we again saying it very clearly, that understand the context of the discussion. The context of the discussion is that when there is fear of fitna, cover properly. When there is no fear of fitna, there is a concession, emphasis on the concession. So keep that in mind. Again, someone said, Jazakallah, Maulana, for disrupting your program. But the reality is men are separating beds and lightly hitting women for everything and anything they think is disobedience. Yes, again, I know the sister has brought this question here of separating the beds and hitting again. Maulana, I will say that we will post this back. It is becoming an issue. there are lots of people there are not lots of people. There were a few sisters that did call me regarding this aspect of separating beds and even physically hitting. So, inshallah, Maulana, I think it will be good for us to bring it back up.
Inshallah. Mara, we coming to the destruction of the Muslim family unit. Today, we've seen a huge rise in the number of people marrying narcissists and having children who aren't being raised with a correct Islamic education.
Yes. So, like how the questions are coming and people are talking about the destruction of the Muslim family unit. We're seeing a high rise, a huge number of people that are marrying socially, mentally disordered people, and even having children who are not being raised with the correct Islamic teachings so that they are able to thrive as adults. Many children, yes, so that's the family unit we're talking of. Many children are feeling neglected, are feeling ignored because their fathers are busy working and their mothers aren't present at home for a number of reasons, and as a result develop resentment towards other children around them who belong to happy families, have parents who appear to care about them, and I'm saying who have parents who appear to be caring for them. Resentment and jealousy are expressed in behavior problems, depressive moods, and which results, unfortunately, in narcissistic attitudes. So I'm going to just repeat this one so that we understand the discussion. What's happening is that because both parents are working, many children are feeling neglected, many children are feeling ignored, the fathers are busy working, mothers are perhaps not regularly at home, either working or either meeting with friends, etc., for a number of reasons. And these children develop resentment towards other children around them, who they see who belong to happy families and have parents who appear to care about them. Resentment, jealousy, behavioral problems such as depression, depressive moods, mood swings, which all of this results in narcissistic attitudes. Many people feel they are left to take care of themselves. When they are young, many children feel that they have to take care of themselves when they are young, which is why they get involved in the wrong company, in gangs, unfortunately intoxicants, substance abuse, and also sometimes petty theft, bad company, unfortunately porn addiction, and other, dubious activities. And all this is because of an absent parent. It can be argued that most mothers are not aware of the dangers and consequences of leaving their children unattended. And I'm saying this, there's no blame. Many parents, many mothers are not aware of the dangers and consequences of leaving their children unattended as they grow up. Children who don't find loving mothers waiting for them when they come home from school. So when they are alone at home, there's no mother at home, what will they do? They will then, resort to watching TV or engaging in social media or communicating with friends whom they tell their problems to, which can be a problem in itself if their friends encourage them to do the wrong things and to make them feel better. The presence of a narcissistic parent in a household makes it even more difficult to raise happy children, as they have to regularly witness abuse their other parent emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically go through. So we had the sister that talking about, separating beds, hitting, all of this. Now, these are things that we need to keep in mind. The presence of a narcissistic parent in a household. I must just mention here, Mara, that we did make mention that sometimes narcissist men use certain Quranic ayat and ahadith to fulfill their narcissistic objectives. And they use these ayat and ahadith wrongfully for the wrong reasons. And again, we had a lengthy discussion regarding this in the past. So coming back to our discussion, that the presence of a narcissistic parent in a household makes it difficult to raise happy children, as they have to regularly witness the abuse their parent, one of the parents, go through emotionally, mentally, and even sometimes physically. And it's not necessary that all of this is only taking place by the male partner in a family. Many a times, and there are occasions where even women are exercising these types of, unfortunately, social disorders. Narcissists are also known to be physically and verbally abusive with their own children when they aren't behaving in the way they'd like. So if a mother isn't present at home to offer comfort, these children will grow up with a lot of anger within themselves, and they don't feel protected or loved. Narcissistic men also use physical abuse on their children as a way to hurt them or to torment them or to torment their mothers when they do something to upset them. No matter how trivial the matter may be, narcissists will try to push their partners to breaking point, even during petty arguments, so that when they go into a rage, which is the result of that social disorder in them, when they go into their rage, their children will see that the innocent parent is the deranged psychopath in the relationship who can't control their anger. This type of behavior and abuse increases when the victimized parent has asked for merely, mentions a separation or a divorce. Narcissists may do their best to make sure that their children don't see what they do to abuse and infuriate the partners, but will allow them to see their negative reaction to the, that rage, etc. The goal of them is to ruin the victim's important relationship with the children and others. According to Islam, yes, men are the leaders of the family, as they are meant to be the financial supporters and protectors. And this verse is often misunderstood. The ayah of Surah Baqarah, men are caretakers of women, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially, and righteous women are devoutly obedient and when alone are protective of what Allah has entrusted them with. So this verse is often misunderstood as patriarchal men claim that Allah has given them a higher status and that they are the controllers of women who must obey them to earn financial support. However, this is far from the truth, as it was meant to honor women and provide them with comfort and security.
Now we have one of the worst damages.
Gee, Marana, I just on this Ummah platform, I see someone has put a message. My husband was Jewish and embraced Islam 2 years ago. I am a practicing Muslim and very spiritual. I feel that this has become a bit too much for him. I saw him slacking in his duties as a Muslim. Yes, I think in this case, you should be more encouraging, be a bit lenient to him, let him meet correct people, environments where they see the beauty of Islam. And when a person has just accepted Islam, there should be a gradual process for him to start following all the practices of Islam. It should not be done all at once. Inshallah, with encouragement, with the right support, he will remain steadfast. Remember, shaitan will only attack that person who has something within him. And this is primarily the approach and the traps and the deceptions of shaitan to present Islam as something very difficult to follow. And therefore, the leniency, the support, what is the right word, to be supportive, to allow him to relax, to take things easy would be the right approach, inshallah. Yes, Maulana?
Inshallah. Well, we have one more question to go.
Gigi, let's go through some of the questions, Maulana.
We don't have anything on any feedback coming in yet. The last part was that the worst damages that narcissists have done is that they've tarnished Islam's reputation as a beautiful and peaceful religion. Islam teaches us to be emphatic, kind, considerate, compassionate, understanding, and loving to all of Allah's creation, and they've made the opposite out of this.
Gee, Maulana, can we take this next week, inshallah?
Inshallah, Ji, definitely. Well, Jazakallah for your time, much appreciated. Inshallah, we'll speak to Maulana next week, Wednesday.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The trucks have arrived and stocks are...
Jazakallah, Maud.
Jazakallah.
Speak again next week, inshallah.
Inshallah.